the jury will give the determination if Mr. Anderson will be charged with second-degree murder, burglary, solicitation, and David for first degree. What the prosecutor wants to make you guys believe that Mr. Anderson went from a chemistry high school teacher to a homicidal maniac, and with David, a young boy transformed into a drug pin. When I hear drug pin, I think of El Chapo, not a young civilian young boy. David, 13-year-old boy, was influenced by the show Breaking Bad. Mind you, this boy is 13 years old and his brain hasn't developed fully. So let me tell you a story. David convinced his teacher, Mr. Anderson, who suffers a mentally disease, that they were going to create a joint criminal enterprise to supply the school, Edison, school with illegal methamphetamine, so meth. So mind you, Mr. Anderson has a mental disease that no one was aware of. So one night, Mr. Anderson and David, they went to the high school. They were going to steal Bunsen burners and tubes. That was their plan, to steal that. So when they arrived to the high school, the school board had thought that they were dangerous, so they had tossed everything out. So they had to create a new plan, which was to get the chemistry sets to use to make the meth. So that night they took a chemistry set. There was 1 out of 15 that they took. They took it to David's house and brought it down to his basement, which his parents were not aware of this was going on. So while this was going on, that night they created the first batch of meth, and that's when David started to distribute it around the high school, selling it. On this particular day, Whitney told officer that David was a drug pin. So then officer decided to go to David and try to check his locker room. At this time, David pulls out a pocket knife, I'm guessing to distract the police officer from actually going into the locker room where the drugs were. And as the officer saw that, no verbal warnings, tackled him, knife fell to the floor. By that time, the bell rings. So as Mr. Anderson's stepping outside, he sees a fully loaded police officer with his gun, handcuffs, on top of a 13-year-old boy. So then when he sees that, David says, Mr. Anderson, this guy's trying to stop our science project. Mind you, Mr. Anderson has a mental disease. So when he said that, that flared up his undiagnosed condition and thought, this kid must love science. And from there, he grabbed the knife that was on the floor and stabbed Jack.